our day focused on nutrition in the perinatal space. I am super excited to welcome our next presenter to the stage. Lacy Little is the WIC Director for the state of Montana. Lacy, if you want to come on and get ready to share your screen. Hey. I think many of you are, intimately familiar with WIC. Some of you are working in those positions or have in the past, but you cannot talk about nutrition in the perinatal period without talking about WIC and the incredible network of service that it provides across our state and in a multitude of ways. And I think sometimes we, know that the idea of the WIC lady as the hub of resource and referral in so many of our communities, and particularly in rural spaces where folks are maybe traveling a long ways to a lot of other types of care. So I just knew that I wanted to give Lacy time to be able to share with us what WIC's up to lately, and to be able to answer any question folks might have about how best to refer in, what kind of services they're offering, and yeah, all of that good stuff. So with that, Lacy, I'll kick it over to you.
Well, thanks everybody. So as Stephanie just very kindly said, I'm Lacy Little. I am the state WIC Director. I am a registered dietitian. I have been with the Montana WIC program for about 10.5 years. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the WIC program does and how it works to address the needs of our families. And so one of the things that a lot of people don't necessarily realize is our program, yes, while everybody knows it as WIC, it's actually called the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC. So our title is very long. That's why we use WIC. So I like to start with that because that will lead more into the discussion in a few minutes. So I'm assuming most of you know a little bit about the WIC program, but I do want to provide a little bit of history in case some do not. So the first two clinics specific to Montana were actually on the Fort Peck and Northern Cheyenne tribes, and that started in 1974. So if you could do the math very quickly, you'll see that we are celebrating 50 years this year for the WIC program, which is fantastic and has been a really fun year of celebration for us. In addition to our regular WIC grant, we also have two additional grants that we administer. The first one is our Breastfeeding Peer Counseling Grant, which was first awarded to Montana in 2004. This grant specifically provides WIC families with peer support during their breastfeeding journeys, whatever it may be, and what we just support our families with as much information or tools that they could possibly need. The second grant that we have is our Farmers Market Nutrition Program grant. This was first awarded in 2009. And basically what this grant is it gives our families who are eligible an additional $30 per person to go buy fresh produce at local farmers markets during our season. So, it's a great opportunity for families to get some additional benefits and also to support our local farmers. Real quickly, just for everybody to know, we have 34 agencies around the state, and there is actually about 80 clinics around the state. And we do serve and cover all of the counties in Montana. So some may be saying that's great, but where are they located? So we have created this map and we try to keep it up to date as much as possible. But this just gives you a really good idea of where all of our clinics are located. Not only does it show where our clinics are, it also shows our breastfeeding peer counseling programs, which are little purple squares, and our farmers market programs, which are kind of the green triangles. So right now, we have 21 agencies that have access to a peer counselor, and we are continuing to work more and more towards getting 100% coverage, which is our ultimate goal, which is, dream big, right? But we are definitely getting there, as before that has been around 15. So we're definitely working in the right direction. And then our Farmers Market Nutrition Program, we have 8 agencies that currently administer that additional grant. And that is just purely because we are only given so many dollars, and we want to be able to support that program and the majority of the people where we can, and where our farmers are going to sell their produce as well. So you'll definitely notice as you're going through this, right? You'll see Yellowstone, you'll see Bighorn, there's Lewis and Clark, there's Missoula, you're right, all the kind of the bigger locations that have our big markets. Those are the ones that tend to have that additional grant. So who's served by WIC? So currently WIC serves about 50% of all infants born in the US, which is pretty incredible. A little bit, Montana's a little bit behind. We only serve about 40% of those eligible. And this is something we recognize and we're definitely continuing to work on. And we're definitely seeing like trends in certain areas that we can improve on. And so this just continues to be a statistic that we are going to keep striving for to meet or exceed that national average. Montana WIC serves a lot of different people, a lot of different families, a lot of different social situations. And some key information is we serve pregnant people, birthing people. A lot is based on breastfeeding status, how depends on how much benefits they get, right? So a breastfeeding a breastfeeding person can get up to 1 year of benefits. A non-breastfeeding person can get up to 6 months worth of benefits. And the one category that people don't necessarily realize where we can really help families is if there has been a neonatal loss or a miscarriage, that person is still eligible for benefits up to 6 months in WIC. In addition, we also serve infants up to their first birthday, and then children 1 up to their 5th birthday. And some common other groups that people don't necessarily realize is we cover children in foster care. We serve migrants, and we serve individuals experiencing homelessness. So some people may say that's great, but what does WIC really provide? And so this is, I think, one area where in Montana we have really strived to go beyond just the food. And so WIC provides a great deal of benefits to our Montana families. And the first one we always like to highlight is nutrition and breastfeeding education. This occurs at least quarterly and sometimes more depending on the family's needs. And something to note here is that WIC provides free services to registered dietitians. And so this is a key benefit that a lot of people don't realize, and we try to highlight, because if they go to see a dietitian, outside of WIC services, of course, it might be covered by Medicaid or whatever insurance they have, but really that can be anywhere from $60 to $140 an hour, and that's a free service that they could have with WIC. And so that's something that we really like to highlight. Second, WIC provides referrals to local resources. Our local agency staff are very, very knowledgeable regarding what each of their communities have available and also the communities nearby them. So some examples of referrals that they provide are to food banks or other food assistance programs, to medical providers or dentists, and specifically if the medical providers or dentists in their area are accepting Medicaid, and other mental health providers or support that are available in their communities. The third piece, and what is most known about our program, is the food package. And so we always like to highlight that we are a supplemental program, which means that we only provide about 50% of a participant's needs, but really it's based off of the nutrient needs that person needs. Something to note that's a big change is our food package is changing in January of 2025. And for those that have been around and know a little bit about WIC, the last time we saw a substantial change like this was in 2009. So of course, it's been quite a few years, and we are very excited about this big change. This revision has come from the USDA to better align the WIC program with the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine recommendations. So who are our partners and stakeholders? So in WIC, we have many groups we work with, and so you can see a few that we have here. A lot of these groups that we work with might be simply to better align and meet needs in terms of like Medicaid or SNAP or TANF, or helping them get associated with their school lunch program. The new one for us this year our new partnership is with the Best Beginnings Child Scholarship Program. If a family does get this program, the traditional scholarship, they get to qualify for the program automatically through their income qualifications, right? And so Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, which is the tribal equivalent of SNAP, school lunch, and this Best Beginnings, if people have those, all qualify for WIC automatically, which is a huge benefit for us and for families, so we don't create that barrier to service. Some of the other ones that we participate in, immunizations, we help make sure families are, getting information about immunizations, and we specifically check for a couple of them. We connect them with Montana Food Bank Network locations or other food assistance programs. And then grocery stores, right? They are a key partner with us. Our families actually experience more with grocery stores than they do with us. And so making sure our grocery stores are our partner and an ally to support our families that we serve. So with WIC, in 2018, we started screening for the PHQ2 questions. And so I have them up on the screen for you all so you can see specifically what our WIC staff ask for. So you can see that there's a purpose. This is just so staff know why they're asking it. And then also to help them identify when we need to refer. So of course, these questions and the answers are below. Staff have to ask these at all appointments, which is, it can be a pregnancy appointment, it can be a postpartum appointment. This is asked for all of our women that are in our program. So when we first rolled out our PHQ2 questions, this was a huge change for Montana WIC. And the change did come with some concerns from staff. And so we definitely wanted to support the staff and make sure that they could ask the questions or felt comfortable to ask the questions. And, the big concern that they had was making sure they could properly assist families in their time of need if they did screen positive. So, with that, we said, what can we do as a state WIC team to support them? And basically, we have been working since then to provide training and resources for our staff. This includes bringing in speakers to all of our different conferences. We support 3 to 4 a year. And so making sure there's always somebody there that has some kind of counseling or mental health education or resource for our staff. It can also be that we also hold a annual new employee training, and we talk to them a lot about Postpartum International and some different websites and resources for them to look at. And since we've rolled out these screening questions, some of our locals have really developed some great support and some great tools in their toolboxes locally. And so we've just continued to work on this process. And when we do hear of those really great connections or referral sources or anything like that, we actually ask those locals to present at our local agency conference calls that are monthly so they can learn from their peers. So when I talk about resources provided, in WIC, we are required to provide substance abuse handout with education during all certification appointments. And so in Montana, to meet this requirement, we use the SAMHSA website for this information. Not only do they provide locations for substance abuse, they also are able to search by mental health resources based on their zip code. And so therefore, Montana WIC really decided to include the required substance information and add in that mental health information. And through the years, the assistance programs have really grown. So when we first started this, back when I started in 2015, there was only a handful of resources in each of the communities. And now it has just ballooned. And so since it has ballooned, we've had to break out our handout into 3 different regions. And so that is the Western region, Central, which is what you're seeing on your screen, and the Eastern region. This picture really just gives you an example of what we do. All this information comes from SAMHSA, and then on the back are locations where we have clinics and some of the resources available to them. And again, all this information comes directly from the SAMHSA website, and we try to stay up on it. If our locals are like, hey, that phone number has changed, or hey, that's not their address anymore, we also send that information to SAMHSA and say like, hey, here's an update. And then of course we update in our next printing with the information the staff provide. So with that, that was a very quick brief. I was told very quick. And so that was as quick as I could go with the vast amount of information that WIC does provide. So with that, if there is any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Lacy. And yeah, I'd love to invite questions from the group as well. And you know, I'll kick it off with a question. We've got about 9 minutes for these. I when what caused the state of Montana, like I would love to talk a little bit more about why you all screen or how that came to fruition. And is that different than nationally? You know, I don't hear of that when I talk to people in national circles, and so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so this actually started with the previous administration. It was with Sheila Hogan, was our director in DPHHS, and she approached us and said, hey, there's a big need here, and we aren't seeing the screening with our healthcare providers. You guys touch so many families. How would you guys feel about starting something like this? And so we reached out originally to our partners in our region. So we're in the Mountain Plains region for WIC. And you're right, people don't necessarily screen for it, or they didn't back in the time. And so we said, you know, it's a fine line for WIC, right? We touch everybody, but we're also asked to do everything. And so, of course, we don't want to make our families sit with us for 4 and 5 hours to go through everything, right? And it's kind of out of our scope. So we said, let's do the two, and then make sure that we have tools available for our staff to be able to transfer them to the assistance that they need, but do still screen, right? And I can say, like, as the years have progressed, we definitely see screening more. But again, I think it's that fear almost of scope of work and what's appropriate for us to address. Our staff trained for it. I mean, realistically, we go through staff turnover 30 to 40% every year or two. And so like making sure we have these people trained appropriately to support appropriately is really important. And I think that's kind of why you'll see some agencies really jump on board and do it. But at the most you'll ever see is probably that PHQ2. You'll never see really anything much more than that, just because that's really kind of out of our scope at that point.
Yeah, I appreciate that entire reflection and process. I mean, just to take a minute, like at our second conference, perinatal mental health conference, we hosted that one in person in Butte. And I, like, folks who know and work with me know that I have like not the best memory for specific incidences, but I will never forget at the end of the conference, you know, a WIC worker from Fort Benton stood up and said, I understand why I'm asking these questions. And so I just, you know, just touches my heart, like, to watch a whole system do something that maybe there was like big discomfort with, but to go boldly in a direction and bravely and thoughtfully. So like, huge round of applause for y'all at WIC for brushing up against new and different in order to best care for the people you serve. So I love that. For others in the group, are there any other questions that they have for Lacy about WIC and how you can interact or connect with them in the state?
I see a question in the chat. Yeah. Do the majority of grocery stores in Montana participate in WIC? Is that something that varies across the state? Ooh, great question. So we have about 200 stores roughly at any given point that participate in the WIC program. So not all grocery stores participate. It definitely, we definitely see that as like an act to give back to their communities. And the reason for that is because we have to do what's called peer grouping. So we have to take our stores and put them into different like groups, and then they only get reimbursed for an average dollar amount for that item. So say you have a small town or a small store in Plentywood, Montana, they might have to charge more just because food getting there is harder to get and it can be more expensive. But because of where they're grouped, by federal regulation, they might lose money a little bit because it's an average based on that group. So, what we tend to see is um, stores that participate in it, they do it for the love of the program and to support their own community, which is pretty phenomenal. Sometimes we have to reach out to grocery stores and we'll ask them if they'd be interested in participating if we can see that there's families in the WIC program, but there's not a grocery store nearby. And so, like a great example is Ekalaka. Their grocery store really wanted to come on the program. And so we supported that. And then we also didn't have a WIC clinic there. The family was traveling a very long distance to their clinic. And so we actually have a clinic there now to support that community too. So we are really very spread out all across the state. I know Ashley from Lincoln, she is a WIC staff member and she's attending too. She has stores across multiple different areas. And so, yes, we have a lot of grocery stores. 200 seems like a lot, but not really for how big our state is. And so if you want to see all of the stores that actually participate on WIC, on our website, which you have the website on the screen, there's actually an interactive map where you can see where all the grocery stores are for your area. And also, you can also look for We Accept WIC decal has to be placed on the front of their stores. So you can always look for that too if you're looking to see if your local stores support the WIC program.
Awesome. Great question. Any other questions from the group? This is a follow-up to that one, Lacy. Is there anything that if we're thinking about, folks working in community and maybe are not, working in WIC, we're working in different ways in the perinatal space. Are the things that we can do as allies of the WIC system in order to, help you all get referrals, complete the tasks that you all have before you, and to support the program?
Yeah, I think, nationally, WIC participation was declining for so long. Some states are now starting to see an increase, which is fantastic. Montana did for a little bit, and now we're declining again. I think a big piece is just knowing, right? Knowing who your people are in your community. It makes a huge difference. And like you said, WIC ladies, there's people that have been in the WIC program that are just starting to retire that have been in the WIC program for 30, 40 years. And so I think that says a lot about the program and the love that we have for our communities. We are working on a lot of technology updates to make getting into the WIC program easier. And I think, we'll definitely be reaching out to all stakeholders to support and kind of encourage that stuff, which is like a WIC app where they can do a lot of stuff online instead of having to bring stuff in and things like that. But I think just being aware of where your local WIC clinic is, or knowing what we offer, because again, people just think, as much as I hate it, we're really working against it. People think of us as SNAP, and we really aren't. We are a public health program, which is very different from SNAP, and we have our foods to meet the nutrient needs of our families, and we really try to have a vast array of options and sizes and things that really meet everybody's needs, whether it be food allergies or things like that. But really, our staff, it's amazing to me, and I'm always in awe of what they know is available in their communities that most people don't necessarily know. And to be able to connect families to, say, a car seat program, or they might have an extra grant to do diapers. And so to help our families, just little ways like that makes a huge difference. And so I would just strongly encourage reaching out to your local community, your local clinic, and just say hi. They have tons of resources available if you want handouts for your offices or anything like that. And so, just connecting, I think, is the big piece.
Awesome. We can do that, Lacy. Thank you very, very much. I'd invite everybody to give Lacy a big round of applause and 3 cheers for the supplemental nutrition program that is not SNAP. Yeah, thank you so much.